Hello, everybody. This is Bishop Joseph Coffey for WCAT Radio, and I'm thrilled to be interviewing today Teresa Shick. And before we get into the interview, I'll just explain a little bit about who I am. I'm with the Military Archdiocese, and not everyone is familiar with that. So what that means is everybody who's Catholic in our military, our Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, Space Force, while they're in the military, they belong to the Military Archdiocese. And because, as you know, we have troops all over the world, geographically speaking, it's the largest archdiocese in the world. So we have Archbishop Broglio, who's our Archbishop, headquartered in Washington, D.C. And we have the very, very exciting news that just this past week in Baltimore, the bishops gathered for their annual fall meeting, and he was elected the president of the USCCB, which is United States Council of Catholic Bishops. So he takes over from Archbishop Gomez, the Archbishop of Los Angeles. And that is a very, very impressive thing for our Archbishop. We are very, very proud of him, and he'll be very, very busy, but he is an extraordinary shepherd for the Military Archdiocese, and now will be for all of the U.S. bishops. He'll be representing us to the Holy Father in Rome. So that's very exciting for everybody in our military. And he has 4 auxiliary bishops who help him. Bishop Spencer covers all of our U.S. bases east of the Mississippi River. That's 72 bases. Bishop Buchan covers all our U.S. bases west of the Mississippi River. Bishop Bill Mumm lives in Germany. He covers all the bases in Europe and Asia. That's 10 time zones. And I have all the veterans hospitals in the USA, over 150 veterans hospitals. And I too am a veteran. I'm a priest originally from Philadelphia, my home diocese. But I spent almost 20 years in the Navy on active duty as a chaplain before I was ordained a bishop for the Military Archdiocese 3 years ago. So I just wanted to explain to listeners who I was and the Military Archdiocese. So now we're going to get into the interview with Teresa. So Teresa, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Hi, good morning. Yes, I am originally from Tyler, Texas. This is where I live now. The purpose of our getting together, our commonality, is that my husband was in the Navy as well. So he was a Navy SEAL for 24 and a half years. We were stationed in San Diego, and then we were stationed in Virginia Beach. And we've been back home home to the great state of Texas 5 years. I have a quick question for you. Is when there's the diocese over the military, is that why I was able to get my first child baptized on base? Versus
That's right. Okay. The Military Archdiocese would cover all of that, all the chapels on all of our U.S. bases. So all of the priest chaplains who are in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force chaplain corps, and the VA hospitals, they're all endorsed by Archbishop Broglio, and he oversees all of the record keeping as well, his staff, so that when your child gets baptized on a base by a Navy or Army or Air Force chaplain, priest chaplain, that gets recorded with the Military Archdiocese. So we record all the sacraments that are done all over the world. So as you can imagine, it's quite a big operation.
Well, and for civilians that are listening, the fact that my daughter was born very late and my husband was deploying very soon, we had to just kind of slide in there on a Sunday and get her baptized before he left for Afghanistan. So I can imagine that happens all the time.
Right.
But it was urgent that happened when he was there.
Well, we learned to be very, very flexible in the military.
Yeah, he had a huge beard. I could barely walk, it was just a mess, but it was nice to have that accommodation.
Beautiful. Yeah. That's great to hear.
Yeah. So the reason why we're on this interview today is I have started a nonprofit because my husband was Special Forces for so long, and we were just engulfed in that community of military, which I know speaks to a lot of people. Once he retired and we moved home, it's just such a shock, almost a letdown. We've done this hard thing for 25 years, and now we just go home and who am I? What am I supposed to do? These are common service member questions, of course. Mental health is poor. Your marriage is struggling because we didn't have to do it. He was barely there. Lots of things that happen to the service member that everyone hears about. happens to the spouse during transition. And I was just left here going, I don't know what to do with myself. I'm a stay-at-home mom of 4 kids. Doesn't sound so good when I'm not a military spouse of a stay-at-home mom of 4 kids. Like, what am I doing now that he's home? What's even my purpose? What's even my passion? So for 7 years before we retired, I was ombudsman, which I know you know what that is. But for listeners, an ombudsman is a kind of a conduit between the service members' base, the service members' commanding officer unit, and the families. For my purpose, when I say service member, it's always husbands because there are no female Navy SEALs yet. So it was always husbands and wives. It could be the wife calls me because the car is broken down in the middle of the night and she's just moved to town, and then I can find where the husband is or find her help. It could be, hey, she's in labor and I have to call the command and get him home. It could be anything in between, and then it could be the really worst stuff, you know.
Right. Well, that sounds fantastic. I definitely want to hear more about that, and I know our listeners will as well. But before I get into that, can you just talk a little bit about the NSW community, what that means, who's in that, and maybe just brag a little bit about your husband? He'll love that, I'm sure.
NSW is an acronym, which is what we speak in often in the military. It's Naval Special Warfare. That's going to be all your SEAL teams, West Coast and East Coast, and then we have SEAL teams, you know, in different parts of the country. But the operators, the ones that you see the movies about and the ones that you see the TV shows about, are on the West Coast and the East Coast. We did both coasts, West and East, retired at the East Coast. And there's also EOD, which is Explosive Ordnance EOD, Explosive Ordnance Disposal. So they're the bomb guys. And there's SWCC, SWCC. Honestly, I don't know what that stands for any longer, but they're the boat guides. But they're all under the NSW umbrella. Our community was so tight, so close. The chaps were huge for us. You know, we knew them almost by first names just because of the casualty speed at which casualties were coming and the op tempo of how often your husbands were gone. The chaps were crucial to us. We had so many programs that we could use through them. We had them over for dinner. You know, it's like being a small church, and the father comes and hops around at people's houses for lunches. And
so you mean chaps meaning chaplain?
Yeah, chaps meaning chaplain. They were.
Remember, some of our listeners don't know all of our acronyms and nicknames.
Hard habit, right?
Right.
And I'm not even a service member, and I talk like that.
You've picked up the lingo, though.
The lingo, right? My kids have too. It's funny the things they say that the civilian kids are like, "What is that?" You know. But our community was super tight, and even our neighborhood. We lived off base. We never lived on base, but our neighborhood was tight to the point where all the husbands would be gone, but there's the one guy who's home, and he's, you know, lucky husband number one. He gets to do all the things that the husbands need to be doing while they're gone: the plumbing, the mowing the lawn, the, you know, whatever it is. And they were so gracious about it, and they just kind of took turns. Like, I'm the neighborhood husband. Same with your girlfriends. You take them on Christmas parties and work dates, and you don't really rely on the guys being home a whole lot. But what are you going to do? They're out saving the country. I can't complain. He's not on a business trip. You know, he's doing something amazing and great. And it's pretty humbling once we're out to look back at what our life was like. We were just in it. We didn't understand that it was extraordinary.
Right.
And now I fully understand. I married an extraordinary man. You know, we had an extraordinary lifestyle. So
yeah, tell a little bit about him.
Oh, his name is Jerry. He's great. He's actually at home recuperating from his 13th surgery. I think he had a torn meniscus. So yeah, the guys get kind of broken. He enlisted in the Navy. He was 18 and enlisted in the Navy, and then
right out of high school.
Yeah, right out of high school in Houston. And then they made him wait a year to go in. And his joke is he enlisted, and then he sold his car and his apartment for beer money. And then they called him and made him wait a year. So he had no car.
But he kept his dog.
Yeah, probably kept his dog.
Like a country western song, right?
Yeah, I sold my truck. So he joined, he went to boot camp in 1993 in San Diego. And I come into the picture, well, no, he went to boot camp in 92. I came into the picture in 1993, was living in Kenosha, Wisconsin, because my father's company moved us up there. My dad's company got sold and bought bought and sold, and we moved up to Wisconsin. So Jerry was stationed at Great Lakes, Illinois. And we just crossed paths and hated each other. And then he said, y'all. And then I thought he was making fun of me. And so I said, oh, great. Now you're making fun of the way I talk. And he said, no, I'm from Texas. And then it was just like, oh, me too.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And then that was how that worked. Because, you're in Wisconsin, you mean into Texas. It's instant.
Yeah.
So then we got married in 98. That's like, I'm trying to remember. We got married in 1998. San Diego, he was at SEAL Team 1. Did a handful of deployments at SEAL Team 1. These are 6-month deployments to Guam. And then from Guam, he would deploy out of Guam to Southeast Asia. But again, this was pre 9/11, pretty peaceful. He wasn't at the level where if there wasn't something peaceful, he'd be the one going yet. He was a new guy at SEAL Team 1. But we did a handful of those, I would say 3. And then he screened, which is trying out for another team on the East Coast, Naval Special Warfare Development Group. And that's a 6 to 9 month screening process, right? And he got into development group. So that's like Top Gun for SEALs. Okay, so they call it
the best of the best.
The best of the best. It's the tier 1. It's tier 1 of the tier 1. He's the 1% of the 1%, of the SEALs. Right. And so is the training, and so is the money, and so is the support people. I mean, there's nowhere better you'd go if you want to be that type of operator. It's also very fast. The op tempo is insane. His schedule was, it wasn't even scheduled. I didn't even rely on him at all. Like, I just knew when he'd go, but I never even assumed he'd be there. Because even if he's home, he wasn't home mentally. He's just still at work. Focused. I used to joke that I was a mistress to NSW. So we got there March of 01. And then September 11th happened, and it just peaked. We deployed in February of 02 for the first combat deployment of 11 combat deployments total, maybe 12 full deployments. And they were 6 months for a bit. And then once they, I think, got a little bit more organized in their efforts, they switched to 4 months. So he'd go for 4 months every year. And then the 4 months he was supposed to be home, he wasn't. And again, not mentally home, just gone. And we're at home holding up the fort, the women, and going behind the chaps when they knocked on your best friend's door that said her husband just got killed, and we're walking in behind her, picking that up at 24. Got real, real fast.
I think most Americans, even from movies or TV, they do have a little bit of an idea of what the SEALs go through their training and the buds and the EOD guys. I was on a carrier for 3 different deployments as a Navy chaplain, and the EOD guys, they would just work out insanely. That was just part of their ethos, to be in an incredibly physically fit shape. And I know the SEALs were like that, and SWIC guys who drive the really fast boats, they're in incredible shape too. Right. So I think most Americans truly, they try to understand, but there's no way we can understand how intense the training had to be and the phenomenal shape your husband was in and those other guys. So I can just say on behalf of all Americans, thank you. Please tell your husband we thank him for all that training that he did to be in incredibly peak condition, and the mental toughness they had to, all the things he had to endure for training and in real world situations. So I can just say that we're really, really proud of your husband and all the guys that he served with in that Naval Special Warfare community.
Thank you. They did work hard, and they look good, right? But they're so smart too.
They look good in uniform.
Those guys are smart though. They're smart. There's a reason. There's the ASVAB test, Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery Test. Everyone takes before they join the Armed Services to point you in the right direction of where you'd be good. How would you fit in? And the guys who want to be SEALs, they always want to be SEALs from 6th grade, right? You talk to any Navy SEAL and they'll say, it's what I always wanted to do. My uncle was a Navy SEAL, or my neighbor was, or I read a book, or probably nowadays they'd say they watched the movie. But they're smart guys. They're not They're not dummies,
Not just pretty faces.
not just pretty faces. That's just that's just a bonus. And now they're pretty faces, but they're broken. These guys, those SWIT guys, specifically on the boats.
Yeah.
50 knots on a boat all the time messes up with your neck and your spine. And
well, they pay a terrible price for what they are asked to do, and they do it willingly and cheerfully. But we owe them a tremendous debt. Like last week, we had Veterans Day. We're just so proud of our veterans.
Veterans Day is fun when you don't live in a military town. It's Veterans Day in a military town, we don't have school, and you hang out with your dad. And here in Texas, every school has a program, and you're reminded. We actually went and spoke at our local country club, kind of told our story and answered questions. It's neat to talk to people who didn't live it, because they do have different ideas of what our life was like. Especially some people are like, it's so romantic, he's coming and going. But yeah, super romantic when he scares me in the middle of the night because he was on deployment and comes in.
Right. Well, the reality was you probably he was not able to tell you many times where he was in the world or what he was doing. And all you had to do was really, first of all, pray, but also trust in him that he would be okay. And what was that like? Was that pretty difficult for you as a wife and a mother?
Yeah. Trust wasn't even trusting in him for sure, but I had to trust in his brothers that they were going to take care of him. They lived their lives together so closely, these men. And it took me a few years as a wife to learn that I had to take a step back from.
You had to share them. You had to share him.
I more than shared him. I mean, that's their deal. And I was like, come on, these guys aren't going to be with you when you're old. And yes, they are. They're still there. But those are the guys who are going to save your husband's life. And to take a step back to that as a wife is really difficult. But that's who I trust in. Is his battle buddy. There's no man left behind. That's the thing they say all the time, and it's absolutely true. They're doing a really good job as veterans now, checking in on each other too. No man left behind. Like, hey, we haven't heard from so and so. Has anyone talked to him? Let's give him a call. Because the mental health situation isn't good right now. I mean, with the veterans, and the suicide rate's really high. Right. But the harder points of him leaving is when he'd call me and he'd say, "I got to go today. Let's go say goodbye to the kids." And that would just kill me. And that didn't happen very often, but there was a few more serious times, non-deployment, where he said, "Get the kids out of school. I need to say goodbye." And that's just heartbreaking. That only happened.
How did they learn to adapt, knowing their father did dangerous things? And I'm sure they were proud of him, but was that hard for them?
I don't think they understood. So we were out 5 years, and my oldest would have been, my oldest was 13 when he retired, and my youngest was 5. And that was our lifestyle. It's like if your daddy's a firefighter and you hang out with other daddy firefighters, that's just what they knew. They're just realizing how reactions to their friends are when they say, "My dad was a Navy SEAL," and the friend's dad goes, "Oh, I don't think so, sweetie. He was just probably in the Navy." They're going, "Okay, well, when you come over, just talk to him about it, Yeah. But I don't think they knew. I don't think they understood the danger. Sometimes they ask me questions now, and they ask, I'm like, refer to him. I don't know what I can tell you. And they're in a little awe as the older they get.
Yeah, well, they should be.
Yeah, I mean, and our lifestyle was specifically detrimental to my 18-year-old. They don't get along, which is common, I feel like, daddy's daughters. They're very similar, both Geminis.
Maybe stubborn.
Oh, so stubborn. And they're both so smart, and she's
you have to be pretty stubborn to get through Hell Week.
Yeah, right. That's true. You have to be pretty stubborn to get through a military trial too, but that's a common thread that the oldest is kind of taken, unfortunately, is the one that has the worst time with their dad, because he just didn't have the time with them. Doesn't remember first words and first steps, and schools have daddy-daughter day. There is no daddy, or their friends'
I think that's why
died.
people, when we're walking through an airport with our uniforms and people say thank you for your service, that's what they're thanking them for, because people realize that people in the military miss so many family events, and that's a part of the life, and it's why people now say thank you.
Yeah, I hope everyone does that. still stop for veteran, even the old guy in the grocery store, and I always stop and say hi and acknowledge.
Well, the Vietnam guys didn't get that. They got the opposite of that, which was wrong. I mean, these guys were drafted by their country, serving their country proudly. They came home to a much different reaction, not always, but a lot of times. So thankfully, nowadays, people really do show appreciation for the veterans for what they've done, especially guys coming home in uniform.
Yeah, I feel it for sure. I do feel it. And moving forward, that was kind of part of our thing, like, what do we do now? So now he's a financial advisor. He likes that. He's not going to be in love with it. I don't think they're ever going to have the passion that they had for.
No, has he let himself go and he's a wreck now physically?
Oh, he's awful. He's awful. Rolls around. No. I mean, no, comparative. I mean, yeah, if he walked into a 22-year-old, but no, he's 50 years old and he looks great.
He still works out.
He's a little broken. Yeah, he still works out. It's
Good.
just hard.
Tell him to not let himself go. Chap says not let himself go.
He'll go. I know. He's going to be like nodding when he hears this.
So tell me, Teresa, when did you first start thinking about this kind of a nonprofit? While you were still on active duty, while you were an ombudsman, you were thinking, I can really help people someday.
Yeah, we were still active duty, and we kept seeing marriages fail within 1 to 2 years of transition. Transition could be retirement or the guys just get out, however that looks. Marriages were failing. And I said to my girlfriend, am I headed for a divorce? Like, what? We just did the hard thing. We're supposed to be going home to Texas and be happy. But as you looked at these people who are divorcing, they never really knew their spouse. They never really had time to know their spouse. And now their spouse is mentally broken, physically broken. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know who each other are. You have no shared hobbies. You have no shared interests. Your marriage was logistical. It was the calendar date of when he's coming home and when he's leaving. You couldn't really plan anything. You missed regular celebrations. It's just like a marriage on paper. So I started thinking, and as ombudsman, as I was a connector to so many people and resources, I do that well. So I started thinking, I need to do this after. I need to keep the families together after, especially when they've gone somewhere. So I will find a pod of women, of Navy SEAL wives who live in the same area, Texas or New York or Colorado, San Diego, wherever they are, and I'll host a retreat for the ladies and make sure they can find each other again. And then we sit down and we say, this is what your transition, this is what it's going to look like. You're going to have a different man that comes home. You have a different man that's around the kitchen table. We have secondary PTSD just from being hypervigilant about our husband's PTSD. I make a point to go into the room first and know where he can sit, where he doesn't have to turn his neck, or where he can definitely see the door. I make it a point to not go places where there's strobe lights or too many kids yelling or too much feedback, because those things bother his headaches and his eyes. And, you kind of eggshell around your lifestyle that you've been taken away from. So we kind of prepare these women. This is transition. These are your resources. This is what your husband needs to do to get his traumatic brain injury looked at, or his PTS, or probably needs hearing aids. He probably needs glasses. This is the VA. Well, that's a whole nother deal, but this is how the VA can help you make sure he gets his disability. Just educate these women on helping their husbands do well after service, because they just say, thank you for playing, take off your uniform, and that's all. It's just a lot to navigate, I think, for anyone when you've been told what to do, what to wear, where to go, who to talk to for the past 2 decades. And suddenly you're on your own.
So when did the idea of a foundation come into your mind?
It was in 2017, just before we were getting ready to retire. I thought I need to start a nonprofit to help these women, to help these families navigate. And I didn't know how that was going to look. And so we played around with it for several years, and we had lots of get-togethers with other couples that were about to retire and couples who got out already and failed marriages, and asked what went wrong, and just started taking best practices, figuring out how we're going to tailor this foundation to help our community. And the Pillar Foundation is the name, because we were joking around that the women are the pillar of the family, and it just kind of stuck. And after we do the initial retreat, we'll still track the women professionally and personally. So they may need executive coaching, because now they have the time to find their passion, to find their purpose. Now they may have the time to go back to school. because their husband's home or their kids are grown. We give them some endocrine therapy, which is hormone therapy for the women. There's Bible study they can participate in. There's hopefully in the future we'll have some educational scholarships. We tend to be the demographic, the military spouse in their 40s who don't get scholarships. We're not E3s and we're not, this. It's just we're in this middle ground. So there's a lot that isn't offered to the military spouse, specifically retired military spouses. And that brotherhood that I spoke about, we have it too. Like, I need my sisters just as much. There's a commonality. If you are in an airport, like you said, if you run into another chaplain, you guys are going to instantly know somebody, 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon type thing.
Right.
It's just necessary that our community stays together, but also moves on. And how does that look? So who better to help you move on than someone who's done it before you and can navigate all those bumps, make it a little easier.
Right. So talk a little bit more about those retreats. How did they come about?
It's been on social media that I've been, tracking the women, but I have a private Facebook page, and the Navy SEAL wives, we have several different Facebook, Instagram pages, ways we talk. And so when they say, I'm going to retire, I'm going to move to Ohio, I just started a spreadsheet. And then once I had enough people in Ohio, I go, okay, there's 7 of you in Ohio. You guys live in a 2-hour driving radius of each other. I'm going to host a retreat. So oftentimes I'll have a lake house or a mountain home or a beach home donated, which is fantastic. And then we get together and we bring in all kind of providers. We have a mental health session. We'll bring in yoga. We'll bring in a nutritionist. We make sure we get outdoors. If you're in Ohio, this is going to be your new thing you have time to do. If you're in Texas, we're going to get you on a horse. If you're in Colorado, we're going to teach you how to hike. Because you have the time now, and it's important as women across the board, and moms and spouses and wives and daughters, is to continue to take care of yourself and have that moment of clarity every single day. Like, get out and do something for yourself. So we teach them different ways that can look. It could be your yoga you've never done. It could be breath work you've never done, or meditation, or journaling, or jogging really fast, however that looks. But to get those women together in that 1 4-day time span, and they come away going, you live in the neighborhood next to me. I didn't know it. You could have been here this whole time, walking me through this transition. And then when new people move to Ohio, I can say, here's your group. These are the ladies. This is the soft landing for you. These are the ladies that are going to help you navigate. And then whatever you need, let us know. Whatever you need after. Do you need help getting a job? Do your kids need help with the VA? Do you need help with the VA? Whatever they need. That it's always growing because the resource list is expanding and there's more opportunities.
Well, the retreats sound fantastic. I would imagine they'd be non-denominational, but I'm sure prayer is some part of it.
Absolutely. And we do find each retreat, I do a survey before, and so the women tend to navigate towards the same thing. Some are all about mental health. Some are all about, I don't know what to do with myself. And some are like, my kids are, everyone has their different issues, but we do offer a Bible study. It's via Zoom, and it's from one of the women who went to my first retreats. We put her through executive coaching, and she just couldn't figure out what made her tick. She's like, I've been a wife this long, and now my kids are grown, and I'm just a wife. I don't know what to do with myself. And her spirituality kept coming up. And the executive coach said, well, how about a Bible study? And she just lit up. I could do a Bible study. I do it all the time. So she does it for us now. Yeah. So that's not everyone's cup of tea, but it's a lot of people's cup of tea.
Great.
And it's something that we offer. And a lot of the women really just love that safe space of being able to come in again and only talk about what we can talk about, because we can't talk about it.
Right.
You and I, as a chaplain, I know you know what I can and can't say. You're safe to me. But our bishop here in Tyler, Texas, is a close friend of ours. I know he's safe to me, but I know he wouldn't understand what I'm saying. So it's nice to have that. You just skip that stage,
Yeah, that's great. And do you have any spouses of retired chaplains that you've worked with at all?
We have one. He's retiring in December, and Chaplain Bradshaw, I don't know if you know him, but he retires in December, and I'm excited that she's there because I can't wait to see what she's going to offer.
Great. She'll add so much to that group, I'm sure.
And they've been married, and they're great, and he's been through, I think it's 30 years. So he's been through all of our casualties, and he's been on both coasts, and he's, just well loved. I used to sit next to him on all the all the funerals because the very first seal that we had killed, his name was Neil Roberts, and they called him Fifi. So I sat with my friend Michelle Bourgeois on my right side, and my friend Courtney Redser on my left side, and we all said, "This could be any one of us." That poor woman, you know, all the things you say when you're at someone's funeral and we're crying. And 3 weeks later, I sat next to Courtney Redser at Michelle Bourgeois' husband's funeral.
Oh boy.
And then 2 years later, I sat next to Courtney Redser at her husband's funeral. And then I decided I'm not sitting next to anybody anymore, and I go sit next to the chap because I feel safer. But like I was a curse for a little bit. That's just was the pace of our community. So the chaplains are huge for us. I mean, people who weren't religious, chaps came in. It's just the presence. It's just, you know, they're safe.
Right. In our chaplain community, we say that we provide for our own, we facilitate for others, and we care for all.
I love that.
So I've had many conversations as a Navy active duty chaplain with people of many different faith groups, Catholic like me, people who had no faith whatsoever, but they were very happy to talk to me, and I could help them any way I could. So I'm so proud of the chaplains out there, and I know they do a great job.
Well, my husband, you'll love this, was not Catholic. He was just non-denominational. His dog tag says non-denominational. I don't know, do dog tags still do that?
I
Have
think
a religion
so.
printed on there? Okay. Non-denominational. He grew up in a interesting family, not super, not very good environment, I guess, without giving away too much. And when he was about 12 or 13, his mother and him got into some sort of fight, and he said, "I'm just going to live next door with Mike," the 35-year-old man who he played video games with. With nowadays, you'd be like, no.
No way.
First of all, you can't be playing video
Red
games.
flags.
Yeah. So that's how much it wasn't, you know, like he wasn't being paid attention to. So Mike Kiddo is his name, pulled him in and has never let go. He ended up taking legal guardianship over Jerry. This was in Texas. And then he got Jerry into the Navy, and he's just been there the whole time. Once Jerry left Texas, Mike moved to Colorado and said, "When you guys retire, I'll move back to Texas." And he lives in Tyler, Texas now. He's my kid's grandpa. They call him Grandpa Mike. Grandpa. He wants to call Grandpa Mike. Grandpa Mike. And about 7 years ago, one night, and we're Catholic, like we're cradle Catholic is what my friends always call me, cradle Catholic. And we're super close with our bishop, Bishop Joseph Strickland.
Yeah, he's my friend. He's a great bishop.
He's a great bishop. He'll be
We're
here
really
on Thursday.
proud of him.
He married us, actually, Jerry and I.
Wow.
Yeah, it was him and Monsignor Joseph married us kind of together. Milam Joseph. Anyway, so he's sitting around with my father, great Catholic, never misses a Sunday, his father, Mike, and all of us. And he said, Jerry says, "Why am I not Catholic?" And we're all waiting for that because, you know, you don't want to push it on him.
Right.
And everyone just like, so he just started saying things out loud like, "Why am I not Catholic? This is dumb. I've been raised by a great Catholic man. I married a great Catholic woman. My in-laws are Catholic. All your friends are Catholic. I went to Catholic school. Our kids went to Catholic school." You know, it started coming out of him. And so he went through the process.
I thought you said Navy SEALs were smart.
I know, right? It just wasn't it wasn't necessary for him. So we started losing friends, and he saw me leaning on my faith a little more, and we started having babies, and it was important that they were baptized and, you know, did all the sacraments. So he went through RCI, right?
RCIA.
Had a great sponsor. Turns out his sponsor was much like his dad, Mike, in personality. It was a really good fit. And he became Catholic and did his first communion with our then second grader. So they got to share that
beautiful.
day. Yeah. And now we call him Mr. Catholic, you know, because he knows more than we do.
Well, you have a great bishop there, and he needs support like anyone else. So make sure you support your bishop and your priests.
Yeah. He's great. Oh, yeah. We love our priests. They're good. And my kids Jerry is taking Cecilia, the one he had first communion with. They're going to March for Life in January.
Oh, great. I'll look for him. I'll be there.
Oh, good. I've gone
many years.
Yeah. They went last year.
Yeah. Yeah. I've gone many years ever since I was in high school.
Okay. We'll connect after this and make sure you can find them.
Great. So getting back to the retreats, after the retreat's over, you guys get on like text messages, support for each other, and you just keep in touch, right?
Yeah, I will facilitate another get together or two to make sure they remember, women, they're busy. And I say, hey, you guys, remember how you felt that Sunday when you drove away from that great house after spending 4 days with strangers who are now your best friends? Go have another dinner, and I'll make sure I facilitate that a couple more times. And then there's the friendships just kind of keep going. It's really beautiful. And there's women who literally say, you live in my neighborhood. I did not know you were here. I could have used you so much. And our husbands could have used each other, so much. And then whatever they need.
People with a beach home or a lake home or a vacation home can donate a week, for example, to your foundation to be used for a retreat.
I use it for a retreat. It'd be a donation in kind, so it could still be a tax write-off for them. That's what we need, is those types of places just to together. And then each little town I go to, I try to hire, if I can, a military spouse to do the different sessions that we have, which is sometimes not feasible. But all those things donated are great. Monetary donations, of course, are great. All the endocrine therapy and executive coaching we do, everything has a number assigned, and I can, if somebody needed, I can say, this is exactly what it costs for one spouse to do all of this. But if you look at so many other foundations that service the NSW, it's for the guys, and they need it. And so far, we're the only ones I know that service the women from the day they get out until all the help they need, really, however that's going to look. We're the only ones that I can find. So it's when the other foundations hear me, they're excited. They're like, we want to help the spouses, but that's not our lane. So that's fine. Help me help them.
Right. I went to your website, the Pillar Foundation. It's very, very beautiful, very well done. How are you promoting that? How are you getting it out there?
Pillarfoundation.com is the website. I take any interview I can take. I do a lot of Zoom meetings. I'm on LinkedIn like all day, just trying to network and make the connections. It's really helpful when I connect with another military organization that doesn't service the spouses. And then they can say, great, you service the spouses. Here's our supporters. Here's our partners. Hopefully getting ready to partner with USAA, which is a biggie. And it's a slow go. It's me and a couple board members, but this has been a huge year. This was our first year of actually, boots on ground doing those retreats. We had 3 this year, and we'll have 6 next year. I attend everything I can. I just kind of vocal about it all I can. I have it. It's not like I need a billboard because it's kind of such a niche, but I do partner with NSW, so they do know about me, and they can trickle my information down to the ombudsman, to the women,
right?
To the transition programs.
Well, I'm sure your husband and kids are real proud of you.
They are. They are. Yeah. They are. It's been kind of neat. Mommy's going back to work. It's different.
And when you go on the website, I saw that there was a button there to donate.
Yes.
Just to let you know, I hit the button and I donated.
Oh, thank you. Got to check that this morning.
I always try to support things like this that I know are going to help a lot of people. And I know just from talking to you that this is going to be incredibly helpful for the spouses to make that often, if not always, difficult transition from the military to civilian world. So I know you're going to be helping a lot of people with the Pillar Foundation. So I hope all your listeners now can go to the website, learn more about it, and hit that donate button and to help you with your work.
Yeah, that would be, every little bit helps. Every little bit helps because, there's just so much need. And let me tell you, anyone who says their transition has been fine is telling the truth. Or it's not gonna be fine. Maybe open your eyes a little bit more. Maybe ask your husband some more questions because how can it be fine?
They don't want to admit they need some help sometimes.
Right. Or what if somebody said you can't be a chaplain anymore? Go find something different to do.
Right.
Okay. It's hard. It's hard. And you know what? For the listeners, if you have a military neighbor, go check on them. Go ask them, what was your service like? How are your kids? How's your spouse? Tell me some stories. They love to talk about themselves, even though they pretend like they don't, but ask. Right. Make sure they're okay.
Yeah. I completely agree. I served 28 years in the Navy, and I'm very, very proud of it. And I know, for example, I was a chaplain, and then I was a recruiter as a chaplain. So I'd go around the country talking to seminarians and bishops. And many bishops said that they wanted to help, but they couldn't spare a priest because there was such a shortage.
Oh,
And I've met many priests who wanted to serve as chaplains, and they weren't able to because the bishop couldn't spare them. So I never took it for granted, and I was always grateful that I was able to serve as a Navy chaplain on active duty.
mhm.
And now I continue to serve with the military archdiocese for all of our veterans. So I'm just so proud of you and your husband for what he did and for what you're now doing for those many military spouses who need a little bit of help during that transition from military to civilian life. So on behalf of all those people you're helping, I want to thank you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Sure. Is there anything else you wanted to share that we didn't talk about?
No, just take a look at the website, pillarfoundation.com, PILLAR foundation.com. My contact information's on there. There's a contact form. Even if you're not a spouse or a provider or that you just want to know more, fill out that contact form. That's how and I will contact you. It's me. It's just me. I'll call you. And we can chat if you have ideas on how to support or questions, or helping spread the word. I'm open to all that.
Great. Why don't you can you say your name and your website address and people can write it down?
Yeah. So again, I'm Teresa Shick, SHICK, and the website is www.thepillar, PILLAR foundation.com. And we're also on LinkedIn, but that'd be the first best step is to take a look at that great website and fill out that contact form.
Great. Well, I hope this interview helps a little bit, and then tomorrow your website's going to be blowing up with people.
That's right. I'm going to break the internet.
I hope you're busier than ever.
Okay, me too. I'll let you know.
All right.
All right. Thank you. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Teresa, and God bless you and all your listeners.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.